Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Kelvin here. So one of the most heard of advice in investing is, as long as you buy and hold over the long term, you will do well because stonks. But the other day when I was showering, I suddenly thought of something. Can the S&P 500 go up forever? Now, of course, this forever doesn't mean forever until the sun explodes 5 billion years later and destroy the world. But rather, the forever means will S&P 500 go up for the next 50 years? What if it stops going up one day? It has definitely happened in many countries, like the Japan market, which has been going sideways for a very long time. So in this video, I will explore whether the S&P 500 can continue going up in the future, and with that knowledge, how you can invest. But before I start, I would greatly appreciate if you can help to tap the like button because it will help out with the channel. In return, I will show you a spinning cat. Alright, let's start right now. So, the S&P 500 started way back in 1926, and at the start, it had only 90 stocks. Then, in 1957, it finally expanded to 500 companies and was renamed to S&P 500 Stock Composite Index. If you look at history, there's been a lot of scary events like World War II, Cold War, Vietnam War, Great Financial Crisis, and the most recent pandemic. Throughout it all, the market be like, this is fine, and continue going up, while giving an average 10% annualized return, which is actually quite impressive. That's why you see a lot of people praising the S&P 500. Like Warren Buffett once had a $1 million bet that the S&P 500 would outperform a collection of hedge funds for over 10 years, and he won. In fact, Warren Buffett was so confident in it that he tells his trustee to invest 90% of his wealth into the S&P 500 after he's gone, saying there's no better bet than America. A study by Charles Schwab also found that over 20-year periods, the S&P 500 has never once given a negative return. Now, because the S&P 500 has such a good track record, many people would advise you to just invest in the S&P 500. Like Morty Fu, 2 reasons S&P 500 index funds are the perfect investments. Warren Buffett, for most people, the best thing to do is to own the S&P 500 index fund. Even many YouTubers are recommending you to invest in the S&P 500. So, does this mean you can just sell house, sell car, sell partner and all in your money into S&P 500, wait 20 years and become super duper rich? It depends. To know whether S&P 500 can continue going up in the future, we first need to understand why the market has kept going up in the past. And no, it's not because Wall Street best apes are pumping up the stocks or the dude called and said pump it. In short, the most simple reason why a stock will go up is because their earnings went up. For example, you will see stuff like Microsoft stock rises on strong outlook, Amazon stock surges on earnings. When a company's earnings go up, it makes investors happy. That's because when a company earns more money, it can do 2 things with the money. First, it can reinvest the profits in itself, like build more factories, hire more workers, do more research, which will in turn increase the company's earnings even more. According to a source, the earnings growth rate for the S&P 500 companies is about 3.99% annualized. Or second, the company can pay out dividends to investors who can then reinvest the money back into the stock market, which will further drive up the stock prices. Reinvested dividends account for additional 4.55% of S&P 500 annual returns. But why do companies' earnings grow? Okay, here we have to know something. While the S&P 500 doesn't fully represent the economy, there's actually a correlation between the S&P 500 and the economy. The reason I say the S&P 500 doesn't represent the economy is because in 2020, when there were lots of businesses shutting down, unemployment was sky high, the market was actually going to the moon. Check this out, in some years, GDP can be positive while the market gave negative returns, or GDP is negative while the market gave super duper high returns. But if you look at the big picture, the GDP and the S&P 500 actually goes up together over time. As it turns out, there are 3 reasons why earnings go up over time. First, inflation. Inflation is just simple supply and demand. Too much demand but not enough supply, or the prices will go up. Too much supply but not enough demand, or the prices will go down. So simple. Now, a bit of inflation is actually a good thing. That's because when people believe things will become more expensive in the future, they would rather spend the money now. This in turn will increase consumption, leading to higher earnings. On the other hand, deflation is a bad thing because it actually encourages people to save more money, like buying lesser handbags, leading to lower earnings. Second reason why earnings go up over time, increased productivity. So just think of productivity as you doing work faster and creating value. For example, if you go to work but just watch YouTube all day long, that means you are not productive at all. But if you work super duper hard, like you work 9 AM to 9 PM every day, this may not mean you are hardworking. It just means your boss is squeezing you dry and probably it's a good time for you to find a better job. All jokes aside, a good example of productivity is how long you need for a car assembly. In the past, it can take anywhere between 18 to 35 hours to assemble a car. But now, Tesla can assemble a car in just 90 minutes, which is super duper fast. As it turns out, you can measure productivity by looking at real GDP per capita, and it has been going up by about 2% annually over the long term. That reason why earnings go up, population increase. So when there's higher population, you have more people to do work, like that Warcraft 3 peon. Work. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics, labor cost represents more than 60% of the value economic output. So there are a few reasons why the US population has been going up over the years. The first one is that US has more young people. In 2020, 18% of the population is between 0 to 14 years old, and only 16% of the population is more than 65 years old. Compare that to Japan, which has only 12.5% between 0 to 14 years old, and almost one-third of the population is above 65 years old. Another reason is immigration. Almost 15% of the US population are immigrants, and the number of immigrants has been increasing. So, because of these reasons, the US population has been increasing over the years, and it will eventually lead to economic growth. So, those are the three reasons why markets go up: inflation, increased productivity, and population increase. Okay, now you know why the S&P 500 has went up in the past. The question is, can the S&P 500 continue going up in the future? Yes, but only if they can continue having inflation, increased productivity, and increase in population. For inflation, there's nothing much to be worried about. It's not like in Japan, where inflation is very low or even have deflation. The US inflation has always been at a healthy rate over the past few decades. And even though recently inflation has shot up to got like 7%, it's just the after effects of the pandemic. Stuff like higher spending, supply chain disruption, and higher labor costs. But in the bigger picture, the Fed has always aimed at keeping the inflation at 2%, which is not too low and not too high. That's right to have a healthy economy. With that being said, there's still a very small chance that the inflation will still go out of control. Second, can the US experience lower productivity? There's nothing much to be worried about here either. Due to the pandemic, many firms have become bolder and more innovative. Stuff like shifting to online channels, automated production tasks. Due to this, the annual productivity growth is expected to more than double pre-pandemic rates. The main reason why productivity has continued increasing is because there's something to improve, aka innovation, which our Catty Mama is always very excited about. For example, long-distance travel changed from horses to steam engines to petrol to electricity. The only time when there's no more productivity growth is when everything in the world is running at 100% efficiency and there's nothing else to improve. But even so, by then, we could already be a multiplanetary species if we haven't become extinct yet, and there'll be more problems to solve. Next, what about US population? Will it continue increasing? Not really. While the population is increasing, the growth has been decreasing. So the US is actually also an aging population, and this will eventually hit US economy like a ton of bricks. Also, US immigration policy has also become more restrictive in recent years, adding to the fact that the pandemic accelerated a decline in birth rates. It's quite possible that the US population will start declining, and it can definitely affect the S&P 500 in the future. But there's also one more factor that we have to consider: Black Swan event. The Black Swan event be like, surprise, motherfucker! While everything I mentioned here is based on data and predictions, there are definitely stuff that we can't predict, like the 2001 terrorist attack which caused the market crash, or the 2008 financial crisis, or the 2020 pandemic. And in the future, there are definitely more unexpected stuff happening, like maybe World War III, aliens come and visit us, robots take over the world, zombie outbreak, multiverse. Then in that case, you can be sure that the S&P 500 will crash. So now that you know that the S&P 500 will not confirm plus chop 100% go out in the future, what can you do? Keep your money in the Milo tin? No, that will be counterproductive. For Black Swan events, while it can definitely happen, it's pointless to prepare for it. Black Swan events have happened in the past, and the market be like meh and continue going up. Even if there's some world destruction event, you can be sure that your Tesla stock going up is the least of your concerns. So what about the US having a declining population? Personally, I'm not too worried about this because of the internet. While there are lesser people working in the US, some companies can easily hire people to work overseas. But if you're still worried about this, there are two solutions. You could invest in overseas countries like China. The way to do it is to invest in MSCI China ETF or just China Tech ETF, CQQQ. Another way is to invest in the entire world. You can do it by investing in SWRT ETF, which tracks developed countries, and EIMI ETF, which tracks developing countries. By doing so, you are betting that the entire world as a whole will progress in the future and not just the US economy. And that will be the best diversification that you can get. All in all, while I believe the S&P 500 will go up forever, I still believe in the basics, which is just to invest in good companies, hold them for the long term, and you'll be alright. So anyway, that's all for today. Do you think the S&P 500 can continue going up in the next 50 years? Let me know down below. Like, share and subscribe as I'll be posting new videos every Monday, Wednesday and Friday.